So again, we basically covered the entire company profile, which is again global settings. That's the last time we did a training session, and now we're going to go ahead and cover the workstation profile. Right, workstation profile is a per station setting, meaning whatever is set on each workstation profile. By the way, you only have one company profile because it affects every single station that you have. Right? When we go in workstation profile, you can have multiple workstation profile because it is a per station setting. That means every single point of sale station you have needs to have one of these workstation profiles, right? We try to keep the workstation, just like the salon, we try to keep it simple, and it's going to follow a similar naming convention. Usually we try to shorten the business name and then just add like ST1, for station 1, ST2 for station 2, right? On the name. So we try to keep it simple. Now, to add a new workstation, there's always going to be at least one workstation profile. And even if you delete all the data, there will be one workstation profile remaining. Okay. So as you go through, to add a new workstation profile, you simply click the Add New button, right? And when you add a new workstation profile, we can go ahead at the very least, what you need to do, even if you were creating a placeholder, is of course put in a name, right? Put in a name. Make sure you have a unique station number. So let's say we choose station number 3. If you already have a station number 3, it won't work, right? And even if you're doing a placeholder, at a minimum, what I always recommend is putting in a terminal number as well. Make it unique. I know I already have a 3, so let me just put station number 4 and terminal number 4 and just save. Whoops. Drawer, no drawer. Make sure no drawer. So you can go ahead and create one just as a placeholder and then configure it and then rename it later if you want, right? You notice we have others. Again, if you have a station number that's already being used, you have to choose a different one. So you can go ahead and do that just to create a placeholder, a new one for you to edit. I'm going to go ahead and delete that just to make it less cluttered. And of course, you can go into any of these workstation profiles, select it. You can double click on it or select it and hit edit. And you can go in and modify the settings, right? So that's basically how we create a workstation profile. Now, if we were to add a new one and we want to copy the settings from an existing one, we can go ahead and use the same as, which basically means copy, right? We can basically create a new workstation profile, use the same settings as, say, station 2, right? And then we can go in, modify our settings, and then save it. Let me go ahead, exit out, and go back in. So let's take a look at some of these settings. Of course, this is the computer name. We put computer, this is the workstation profile name, but we put computer name for a reason, because when the various POS stations are connecting to it, the database, this is how it tells which station is which. So when you go into Windows, right, I show you the Windows configuration. When you go into Windows and you're checking the computer name, that's how we tell them apart. So if your computer name is, again, restaurant 1, right? That's the computer name. It's going to look for a workstation profile with that same exact computer name. That's how it tells it apart. Okay. So computer name is very, very important. Mobile serial number. That only deals with iPads, right? So if I exit out, you see we have 2 of them named Pad 1 and Pad 2. If this was an iPad that we're setting up, a profile for an iPad, just like in the salon, there's a serial number that we need to enter. And that is the mobile serial number. That is where it goes, the second field. And without a mobile serial number, you can still set up an iPad, but it would be in trial mode. And the trial mode is basically a 60-day trial. Okay. Of course, if you want to permanently register an iPad, you would need a serial number. Please note, unlike in the salon, iPad serial numbers in the restaurant, we do charge for it. So that's something to note down. Okay, so they're not free, right? Station number we kind of covered, and generally speaking, whenever I set up a database, this is kind of how I set it up. If this was a back office station in general, even on a salon, this is in general how I set things up. If this was a back office station, I usually set it up for, either station number 99, or I set it up as station number 0. So generally speaking, that's how I name a office station. If it was station number 1, or they only have one station, I name it station 1, and then station 2 would be 2, and then station 3, 3, and so on and so forth. Now for iPad, again, even on the salon, I like to do this. So iPad number 1, I always name it 11, right? Because it ends in 1, and that's the first iPad. iPad number 2, if they have one, would be 12, and then iPad number 3 would be, station number 13. So in general, that's how I name my workstation profiles. It makes it nice and easy to see, right? So, if you're asking a customer to look at what iPad they have, and they're looking on the logon screen of the iPad, right, the restaurant logon screen, and they see station number 12, that's pad number 2, right? So that's that's my general naming convention with the station numbers. Again, every single point of sale station, the workstation profile needs a unique station number, right? Means it can't match. You cannot have 2 stations with station number 2, right? It doesn't make sense. Pin pad port, don't worry about that. That is no longer used. That was only used before we had EMV, right? So right now it's no longer used, the pin pad port. That is not important. So entering any number doesn't matter. Cash drawer. One of the things with cash drawer is this. My general convention is never to choose a different number than what the station number is. Okay. So what do I mean by that? Well, this is station number 1, right? As you can see right here, it says station number 1. That means if I have a cash drawer, I'm going to choose cash drawer number 1. That's what I'm going to do. And you see it right here, we have station number 2. Okay. Let's say station number 2 does not have a cash drawer, but station number 3 does. Okay. Well, here's what happened. Okay, we choose none. Some people set up a database this way. So station number 1 has a cash drawer, right? And you can see cash drawer number 1 is selected, right? That's what we select right here. Station number 2 does not have a cash drawer. Station number 3, let's say it does have a cash drawer. What some people do is this. They select station number 2. Here's where the confusion is going to show up. When you look at your reports, right, end of the night, whether you're counting money, whether you're going in a month later to double check reports to see if something's wrong, you're going to try to look for station number 3's cash drawer. But when you look at the report, it says cash drawer number 2, right? That's going to throw you off, and it just makes things very confusing. So even though station number 2 does not have a cash drawer and station 3 does, make sure you choose cash drawer 3. When you go back and look at your reports, it makes things so much simpler if you know station number 3 uses cash drawer number 3, right? Station number 4 uses cash drawer number 4, and so on and so forth. Again, you wouldn't believe how much more harder it is to kind of troubleshoot reports if you mix these cash drawer numbers up, from the station number. So cash drawer always follows station number. Printer brand. If you've ever dealt with printers, I know we showed you how to install printer drivers and make it work. And at this point, everyone should know how to do basic printer install, whether it's USB or whether it's Ethernet. But in the POS software, Star Micronics, the way they control the printing is slightly different from Epson, right? So when you click on it, you notice there's two brands, Star Micronics and Epson. Now let's talk about Star Micronics first. If it is a Star Micronics printer, always choose Star Micronics, right? You may have a little funny printing. You may have problem controlling the cash drawer if it's a Star Micronics printer and you choose the wrong brand. So if it's Star Micronics, always choose Star Micronics. Now, Epson, if it's an Epson printer, always choose Epson, obviously, right? Epson, choose Epson. But if it's not an Epson branded printer and it's not a Star Micronics branded printer, for example, the SNBC printer that we use, always choose Epson. Okay, Epson is one of the there's a few big brands, but Epson is one of the biggest brands, and the majority of companies, if it's not a, you know, they make their own printer, right? One of those smaller companies, again, like SNBC, what they do is make it Epson compatible. So they follow the same basic way of doing things and the way of communicating with the POS software as Epson does. So if it's a Star Micronics, choose Star Micronics. If it's an Epson, choose Epson. If you don't know what brand this is, choose Epson. So that's a general rule on the printer brand. And again, if you choose the wrong one, and it's kind of hard to choose the wrong one, right? Because Star Micronics, you choose Star Micronics. Anything else, choose Epson. But if you choose the wrong one, you may have funny printing, or you may have cases where cash drawer doesn't work. So that's important. Receipt printer name. If you did not install the printer and if it does not show up on the control panel, you know, go to Windows control panel, you have your devices and printers. If it's not there, then the printer will not be listed. So you must first install the printer before you can choose one. And all it does is look on that list of printers that you have on this computer and show it up on the list. That's all it's doing, okay? Same thing with the label printer. You just click on it and select from a drop-down box. I'm not too worried about a label printer because, you know, more worried about the basic functionality. You know, 99% of the restaurants that we have don't deal with label printers. So I'm not terribly worried about that. But again, you kind of select it the same way you do a regular printer. Receipt width. For most thermal printers that we use, the receipt width should be 285. The only time that you would have a different receipt width if it's an off-brand, meaning it's not a Epson, it's not a Star Micronics, and then sometimes the printing is off. And what I mean by off is sometimes you'll see like the printing might be cut off on the side, or it might be squished, or it might be stretched, right? Because again, if you're looking at these boxes, one end over here, right? And then one end over here on the right side. If you look on that, we'll pretend that's the size of the receipt physically, right? That's the width. Well, on some of these off-brand printers, it just doesn't print correctly. It might be squished or it might be stretched off the width of the page. And that's when we can kind of play around with the receipt width to try to make it print correctly, right? There's no guarantees on that. But again, by default for us, when we use a SNBC, Epson, or Star Micronics, the receipt width is 285. That's a default. Always try that first. Print number of receipts. That's pretty self-explanatory. So every time you print a customer receipt, right, how many copies do you print by default? And most of the time, all you need is one. So every time you print a guest check, every time you pay for a ticket and you print a customer receipt, it prints one copy. Now, some places want more than one copy. Let's say they always want 2 copies, then just put that. So every time you print, automatically it's going to print 2 copies. And that's basically what that print number of receipts does, okay? And we talked about some of the printer settings, but remember, there's a receipt printer attached on the right side over here. If that is unchecked, for example, I uncheck it now, that means even though you set everything up correctly on the left side, because you unselected that receipt printer attached check flag, you unchecked it, that means it's not going to use the printer. So that's an important setting as well right here. Receipt printer attached. Okay. We also have the print number of CC slips. This is related to receipt printing, but it's for the credit card slip. So sometimes what happened is people accidentally put 0 copies here. So you get a customer receipt, but you never get a credit card slip, right? And that could be because someone set it to 0 over here by accident. Or sometimes they set it to say, 5 copies or whatever, and then it prints too much and they complain about it. But that's what that is. So one is for regular customer receipt, and the other is for the credit card slip, which is the slip that the customer signs, after they pay for a ticket using credit card. Log off timeout. So basically when we log on the system and I'm gonna clock in, I may need to clock out first. Okay, let me clock in. So when I clock in and I log on, I can leave I can leave it on this screen. So the next person that goes in, it's actually going to ring things up under my name, right? Because I didn't exit out of the system like I should. So when I'm done, I really should exit the system. Number one, to prevent anyone from going in that's not supposed to be in there. But number two, also to make sure that any tickets that get rang up, it's under my name. And then if the next person comes in, they have to, of course, log on, right? And then start a ticket so it's under their name. Well, if I forget to do that, it's just going to stay here forever. But in the workstation profile, there's a log off timeout. And what that simply does is say, after a certain amount of seconds, log off this person. For example, I'm going to put it at 10 seconds, right? The log off timeout is at 10. That means if I log on and I don't do anything, right, it's going to start counting down. After 10 seconds, it's going to exit me. Okay, I'm not even going to touch this right now. I'm just going to leave it alone. So you saw it. That's exactly what it does. It just exits out of the sales screen, the dashboard or a ticket. Sorry, it's not going to exit a ticket. If you're inside a ticket, you must, exit out of the ticket. But other than that, when you're on the sales screen, right, where you can start a ticket and you don't do anything for that time period, it's going to exit you out, without you having to do anything. So, what that is for, again, is for people that forget to exit out. Polling, I'm not too worried about that right now, but you see the first setting is log off timeout. That's this here. But the second one is the polling, right? That's the second half of this setting. Polling has to do with checking for automated processes. Very specifically, most of the time when we use this, it's for the delay print function. And it's not something that I can really explain to you, but number one, set a polling time. That means every 30 seconds, it's going to check for automated print jobs and a couple of other minor things, but mainly, again, for delayed printing, right? And of course, make sure polling station is turned on. Only one POS station in the entire network can be a polling station. That's the station that's going to check for automated processes. Again, for example, delay print. So if I go in and start a ticket, right, and I select it, and I choose delay print over here, delay print, and I set a time, right? So this, you see, we have a delay print. Well, whatever the time I set is, every 30 seconds, it's going to check. So this station is set to 30 seconds. Every 30 seconds is going to check, okay, do you have something like a delay print where I need to send it, right? So after it hits the correct time, let's say that, it's now the correct time. It will automatically send this order to the kitchen once it hits 12:33. And again, based on the every 30 seconds, it's going to check. So after 12:33, and when it next checks again for automated processes, it's going to send this order for me automatically. Okay. So that's what that polling station is used for. It's, again, mainly used to check certain background processes. The main use for us, the most common one, is really for delay print. So you set a time period when it checks. A lot of times you'll set it for either 30 seconds or 60 seconds, but because generally speaking, if you set a delay print, most of the time, checking every minute is okay. And of course, make sure you enable the polling station. So that's what it's for. Poll display. You guys know the 2-line display? I believe they should have it in a lot of markets over there as well. But basically, it's a 2-line display that only displays text, no picture, numbers and letters. So it kind of tells you what you ordered and what the price is.
Yes, exactly.
Grocery stores, we have it here.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they have it. Well, those are what we call poll display. I don't know if you call it something else, but we can set up 2 of them. But again, I don't like to use them anymore because right now they're quite pricey. For the price of buying one of those poll displays, you can actually buy a second computer monitor and use it as a customer display that can not only show the price of what they ordered, but also, pictures and stuff. So that's the preference. But, we can still use them. We can still set them up, but it's not used that much. So that's what it is. I'm not going to bother showing you how to set it up. Surveillance camera, this is not really used in a restaurant, probably more for retail, but depending on the cameras, I'm just going to explain what it does, but depending on the camera system that they have, right, the camera system can actually pull the menu item information. So as you ring up an item, it'll send that to your camera system to record. And it's actually used more for retail in case of like you got a cashier that's kind of working with a customer to cheat the owner, and they're ringing up like cheaper stuff, as it goes down the line. That's really what it's used for. So as you ring up the item, it'll send it to the camera. So when you're recording, you're like, hey, this guy, you just rang up a cheaper item, but when I look on the camera screen and it shows what you're ringing up, it's actually a much more expensive product. So that's what that is for. That's what the surveillance camera port setting is for, but we don't really use it. So, I mean, we use it on a few retail locations, not so much restaurants. So don't even worry about that. Ticket bar sorting, right? So if I go in, by the way, when just to backtrack a moment, when we display tickets, right here, when I go in and show what tickets we have, oops, let me go again. When I click on it, this is the normal list view that you're used to seeing. Some places actually want to show a bar, what we call a bar view. So you see this? It's almost like a bar. That's the actual ticket there, and you can click the print button. And let me go ahead and start a second ticket. Right? Again, this is the list view that you're normally used to seeing. You can click on it and open a ticket or print. But on the bottom left, there's a show bar. And this is the bar view, right? So normally when we organize the ticket, it's actually listed by the ticket number, right? Small to large. That's how we normally list it. And ticket bar sort order, basically what we can change is how we organize that ticket, meaning how are we listing the ticket. So default is always by ticket number, smaller ticket to larger ticket, right, number. But we can also do it by the table name if they do a lot of dine-in tickets, or even by customer name, meaning whatever customer name you enter on the ticket. So generally speaking, I would say 99% of restaurants use ticket number. Some restaurants that do a lot of dine-in, they want it by the table name. Very rarely do restaurants want it by the customer name. Usually those are places that absolutely require that you enter a customer name on every ticket. It's kind of rare for that. It's more ticket number or table name. Ticket bar, name, and phone number. Basically, what is the primary listing on the ticket, either by name or by phone number. And again, it's mostly places that deal with, for this, it's not a lot of places use it, but it's more for places that do a lot of takeout and delivery that care about this. So the second one, the ticket bar name or phone number, that's like the main listing. Let me go back in. You see right here, customer name is listed first, right? Again, it may be a little hard to see, but that top line, it shows the ticket number, and then it shows a line with customer name. That's because if we go back, the primary sort is based on the name, right? Or we can go by phone number, but if you do a lot of deliveries, they may want by phone number, okay? So if I change it, go back in, show bars. Oh, I gotta exit the ticket. It would actually, on the top, it would actually list phone number. Apologize, you can't really see that. You gotta actually exit this, the POS software to change certain settings sometimes. Grid view. Now, when we open a ticket, how are we viewing it? Grid or bars? That's exactly what it is, right? We were in bar view. So grid view, we leave it at grid view. This is grid view, right? So every time we try to view our tickets, it's going to list, we're going to list all of the tickets like that, right? In what we call a grid, kind of a list. This is bar view. So which way do you want to show by default, right? So if you change the default to bar view, every time you open up all your tickets, it's going to show like this. Okay, so that's the difference between bar view and grid view, right? Right here, what is the default way we list the tickets? Because if I change it to bar, then every time we open the view tickets, it's going to show those bars, those colored bars. Default search, are we doing a keyboard or numeric pad? So when we're inside a ticket, for example, whoops, and you see the search button on the bottom right, if I click on that, what is the default keyboard it shows? Just a simple number pad or the full alphanumeric keyboard? This, the number pad, or the full keyboard? And most of the time, I just leave it on the full alphanumeric keyboard, meaning they can type alphabet and numbers. Numbers. But some places that, their menu number and things like that is only numbers. So they may just want to change the default to numeric pad. If you're not sure, it's just leave it alone. You don't have to set it. Okay, now let's take a look at some of these settings on the right side. Cash drawer A and B. Now in the restaurant, every single point of sale station can actually connect it to different cash drawers. And there's actually a reason for that. But we have to select it over here. So generally speaking, we're only going to select cash drawer A because most of the time places only have one cash drawer, right, per station, if they have one at all, right? So just one cash drawer. Some locations will actually have two cash drawers per POS station. And again, this is only in the restaurant. It is not in salon. It is not in retail. Okay. So number one, to set that up for cash drawer, first, you have to make sure you select a cash drawer, right? And again, always follow the same cash drawer number as the station number, right? After you do that, you have to make sure, are you enabling just one cash drawer, which means you enable just A, or are you enabling both cash drawers, A and B? right? So it would have two separate physical cash drawers connected to this station. Now, when you do that, it's still controlled by the receipt printer, but there's a special adapter, right? If you guys should have a cash drawer there along with the printers and everything, you'll notice that cash drawer is just a single cable that connects from the bottom of the cash drawer to the back of the receipt printer. Well, there's a special adapter that splits the line so that you can connect to two different cash drawers. So there would be a line coming out of the cash drawer. It plugs into that adapter. And from that adapter, there would be two wires coming out, one to cash drawer A, one to cash drawer B. Okay, so it needs a special adapter in order for that to work. Okay, but enabling one or enabling both cash drawers is the same exact, almost the same exact setup, just in A or B. So most of the time when places want two cash drawers is more for like, you know, a bar, right? A small bar, you might only have one bartender. A larger bar, you might have two bartenders or even three. But you only have room for one point of sale station. So each bartender wants to keep track of their own money, right? And they don't want it to be mixed up with the other guy because, again, you know, Josham, if you're a bartender and I'm a bartender, right? If I make a mistake, guess what? Since we're sharing a cash drawer because the point of sale station only supports one, both of us are in trouble, even though it's me that made the mistake, right? Correct? Because
Yes.
we're both opening it and putting money in and taking money out. So from the owner's standpoint, they're like, okay, both of you are, you know, opening this cash drawer, so both of you are responsible. Well, if that's the case, how about we do this? And since we support it, even though it's one point of sale station, when I clock in, I'm going to select cash drawer A. When you clock in, you're going to select cash drawer B, right? As long as we make sure to exit out and don't forget to exit out when you're done, you know, back to the logon screen. When you log in, it's going to be using your login password. It knows it's you. It's going to pop up cash drawer B. When I log in and I ring up a ticket and everything and open the cash drawer, it's going to open cash drawer A. So if I make a mistake, it's only on my cash drawer, not on yours. Okay?
All right.
Okay. So again, that's the reason behind having two different cash drawers. You know, it's a tight area. You only have room for one point of sale station. And you want to make sure, hey, you know, if I make a mistake, you don't want to be responsible for my mistake. And if you make a mistake, I don't want to be responsible for your mistake, right?
Yeah, that is exactly correct.
Right. So that's the whole purpose of being able to use two cash drawers on one station. Now, we haven't set up the kitchen printer. There's actually a lot of settings that will affect it. Kitchen printer setup. But one of them is you definitely need to enable the kitchen printer attach function. Okay. We kind of covered the receipt printer attach function. Basically, even though you set up a receipt printer here, if you're saying there's no receipt printer attached, you know, meaning this is unchecked, then it will not print at all. Pretty much anything you see attached is going to be similar. So label printer attached or not, remote receipt printer attached or not. So remote receipt printer attached, if this is enabled, where it affects things is over here in the company profile. We go to the database tab. You see these printers right here that you set up. Remember, I said that they kind of use it for a kind of a packing slip. It prints like a copy of the receipt, but you can specify where it's going to print, right? To the back area where they pack everything up, either for a pickup or a delivery, right? So these are our remote receipt printers. And where you enable it is over here. You make sure it's enabled on that, because not even though it's a remote receipt printer, they may not always want it to work from every station. So that's why it's a per station setup, right? KDS attach. again, we keep talking about sending work orders to the kitchen, but I explained what that there's what's known as a KDS, kitchen display system. So it's almost like a TV screen that lists all the tickets digitally, and you can delete the ticket or see what ticket is next. That's what that KDS attaches, right? So every station that you want the KDS to work from, you check the KDS attach. Now, there's only one station that actually controls the KDS, and that is the KDS server. So whichever one is actually the main controller for the KDS server, and usually we set that as the main computer. We always set that up on the main computer. So one of them has to be the KDS server, but every station that want to send to the KDS has to have it attached. So that's what that means. Scale attach, we kind of talked about being able to integrate a scale, right? A weight scale that would communicate directly with the POS. So again, scale attach means it's going to use a scale. And if I jump to the miscellaneous tab for just a moment, down here, right, is a bunch of settings that allows you to integrate the scale. Okay. Let's see. All right, this session is actually about to end. So let's take a small break right here, and then we'll come back and continue with the rest of the workstation profile. All right?
Okay.
Okay. All right.